The Loop. It started on a Tuesday. I remember the date, clearly the 13th of October. It was just an ordinary day at first. I woke up, had my usual cup of coffee, and headed to work. Nothing out of the ordinary. But by evening, everything changed. I got home around 7 p.m., turned on the television, and ordered pizza for dinner. As I sat there watching some random show, I noticed something strange. The news anchor mentioned that it was the 12th of October. My heart skipped a beat. Hadn't I already lived through today? Confused, I checked my phone. Sure enough, the date read the 12th of October. At first, I thought it was just a glitch in my phone, or maybe I'd misheard the anchor. But when I went to bed that night and woke up the next morning, it happened again. The calendar said the 12th of October. The newspaper on my doorstep had the same headline as yesterday. Even my emails were identical. That's when panic set in. For days, I don't even know how many I relived the same 24 hours over and over. Every detail was exactly the same. The bus driver who always whistled while driving, the old lady who dropped her groceries outside the supermarket, the guy at the cafe who spilled his coffee. Everything repeated like clockwork. And no matter what I did, I couldn't break the loop. At first, I tried to ignore it. Maybe it would end if I acted normally. But after 3 loops, desperation kicked in. I started testing the boundaries. If this was some kind of experiment or curse, I wanted answers. So, I broke. Things smashed my alarm clock, scribbled graffiti on walls, even yelled obscenities at strangers. None of it mattered. The next morning, everything reset. My apartment looked pristine, the graffiti vanished, and people acted as though nothing had happened. That's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't remember. None of them. They went about their lives oblivious to the fact that time itself was broken. But I remembered every single moment, every mistake, every word, every action replayed endlessly in my mind. It drove me mad. One day, or whatever you want to call it, I decided to dig deeper. I spent hours researching online, though the internet reset too, reading articles about temporal anomalies, quantum physics, and urban legends. That's where I found a forum post from someone claiming they'd been stuck in a similar loop. Their advice? Find the anomaly. Something out of place. Something unnatural. Fix it, and the cycle might stop. Armed with hope, I began paying closer attention to details. At first, nothing stood out. But then, during one particularly grueling loop, I noticed a man standing across the street from my building late at night. He wore a long black coat and never moved, just stared at me with hollow eyes. I hadn't seen him before, but now he seemed permanent, like part of the scenery. Desperate, I confronted him, or tried to. When I approached, he simply disappeared into thin air. No footsteps, no sound, nothing, just gone. But as I stood there, confused and scared, I heard a whisper in my ear, "You're running out of time." From that moment on, things escalated. The loops grew shorter, more chaotic. Objects started disappearing mid-loop: me keys, my wallet, eventually entire pieces of furniture. Shadows flickered at the edges of my vision, and sometimes I swore I could feel cold hands brushing against me. Worst of all, the man in the black coat began showing up more frequently, always watching, always silent. Then came the worst loop yet. This time when I woke up, the world felt wrong. The sky was darker, the air heavier. People moved slower, as if trapped in molasses. And the man in the black coat wasn't across the street, was in my room, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Why?" I demanded, backing away. "What do you want?" He tilted his head slightly, revealing pale, featureless skin beneath the brim of his hat. "Balance," he rasped, his voice echoing unnaturally. "You've disrupted the flow. Now you must pay." Before I could respond, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. His touch burned like ice, freezing me in place. Time seemed to shatter around us, fragments of memories. Moments and faces flashed before my eyes. Then everything went black. When I woke up, it was the 14th of October. The loop was gone. Life returned to normal, or so I thought. But every once in a while, I catch glimpses of him in crowded places, still staring, still waiting. And sometimes, late at night, I hear the faint click of heels on pavement, growing louder until I can't take it anymore. They say time heals all wounds. But what happens when time becomes the wound? I'll never forget those endless loops, the suffocating repetition, the feeling of being hunted by something beyond comprehension. And deep down, I know it's not truly over. Somewhere, somehow, the man in the black coat is still out there, counting down the seconds until he comes back for me.